There are moments in life when words fail long before we do. Moments when the world feels loud, chaotic, demanding an immediate reaction from you. Yet something inside whispers, "Not now, not this time." If you pay attention, you'll notice a quiet truth. Most of the pain you've carried never came from what happened to you, but from what you felt forced to say back in the heat of the moment. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is the decision to protect your inner world before the outer world pulls you into its storm. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a person's strength is measured not by how loudly they speak, but by how deeply they remain grounded when everything around them shakes. Today, you will discover 8 situations where silence is not weakness, but wisdom, dignity, and power. 8 moments where saying nothing changes everything. Comment below. Silence is my strength. 1. When your emotions are on fire. Stay silent. When your emotions rise, your wisdom sinks. A heated mind cannot carry steady words. Silence is how you stop the damage before it begins. There are moments when your chest is tight, your breathing sharpens, and your thoughts race faster than your ability to control them. In those moments, every instinct inside you wants to defend, attack, explain, or fight back. Anything but stay still. And yet, those are the exact moments when silence becomes your greatest shield. Most people don't regret their silence. They regret the words they threw out while their hearts were trembling. We all know the sting of wishing we had paused just 10 seconds longer. We replay conversations in our mind, thinking, if only I hadn't said that. If only I had waited. Silence protects you from becoming the villain in your own story. Anger, hurt, jealousy, betrayal. These emotions are waves, and when they rise too high, you lose sight of the shore. Speaking while drowning never saved anyone. It only drags you deeper. The Stoics warned, when your mind is disturbed, let your tongue be still. Only then can clarity find its way back to you. A reaction born from emotion is a weapon turned against yourself. A response born from silence is a decision made in full control. When you pause, even for a few breaths, your inner world begins to settle. Your heartbeat lowers, your thoughts realign, and suddenly, the thing that felt like an attack becomes something you can observe instead of absorb. Silence gives you distance, a small but profound space where wisdom can enter. This sacred pause is not passive. It is a conscious refusal to let someone else hijack your peace. It is you saying, my emotions are loud, but I will not hand them the steering wheel. And in that stillness, you reclaim yourself. Many destructive conversations would have ended differently if silence had entered the room first. Imagine the arguments that could have been softened, the relationships that could have been protected, the dignity that could have been preserved. Silence doesn't erase the pain, but it prevents you from multiplying it. When your mind is boiling, your words will burn. Let silence cool the fire before you speak. The Stoics trained themselves to master this moment, not by suppressing emotion, but by refusing to let emotion speak for them. A disciplined silence is not the absence of expression, it is the presence of self-respect. It is the choice to respond from the highest version of yourself, not the wounded one. There is a calmness that only appears after restraint, a deep breath that reminds you, I don't have to react immediately. I don't have to react emotionally. I don't have to react at all. And that realization alone is liberating. Silence is not what you give the world. It is what you give yourself. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. 2. When someone is trying to provoke you, stay silent. The person who provokes you is trying to own your reaction. If they can control your anger, they can control you. Silence is the moment you take your power back. Some people don't come to understand. They come to ignite. They poke at your weaknesses, throw subtle jabs, mock your tone, twist your words, and wait, watching for the moment you explode. And when you do, they win. Because your reaction becomes proof of the story they were trying to write about you. Provocation is never about truth. It's about dominance. It's an emotional trap designed to pull you into a battle you didn't choose. But a battle only exists if both sides fight. When you stay silent, the entire structure of their manipulation collapses beneath them. Your silence forces them to face the emptiness of their own intentions. Your stillness exposes their insecurity louder than any comeback ever could. Provokers crave chaos because it distracts from the chaos inside them. They want your frustration to eclipse their immaturity. They want your anger to hide their fear. They want your eruption to excuse their behavior. But when you don't give them that reaction, they are left standing alone with the truth of who they are. The Stoics taught that you don't defeat an unwise person by arguing with them. You defeat them by refusing to descend to their level. Self-control is your victory. Their frustration is the evidence of it. Silence is not about letting them win. It's about refusing to play a rigged game. When you don't react, you shift the weight of the moment back onto them. They must now confront their own behavior without your emotions to hide behind. In those tense moments, your silence becomes a mirror that shows their impatience, their childishness, their desperation for attention. And few things make a provoker more uncomfortable than being left alone with their reflection. Sometimes, the most powerful stance you can take is simply to look at them. Calm, unbothered, unmoved. Not rolling your eyes, not sighing, not arguing, just watching. Because nothing destabilizes a manipulative person more than a steady gaze and a closed mouth. A storm cannot control a mountain. A provoker cannot control a mind that refuses to be shaken. When you respond with silence, you redirect the energy inward, back to your own center. You protect your dignity, your peace, and your emotional clarity. You refuse to be the puppet dancing on their strings, and in doing so, you become untouchable. There is a moment, right after you choose silence, when you feel a shift inside you, a strength rising, a calm settling, a realization unfolding. Their chaos is theirs, not mine. And that is the birth of true emotional freedom. Silence in the face of provocation is not weakness. It is mastery. It is choosing peace over performance and self-respect over ego. 3. When the conversation is no longer about truth, only ego. Some conversations are not meant to be won. They are meant to be left. When ego enters the room, truth quietly walks out. Your silence becomes the only voice of wisdom left. There are moments when you can feel it happening. The tone changes. The eyes narrow. The pace quickens. The person you're speaking to stops listening and starts loading their next argument. It's no longer a dialogue. It's a duel. In these moments, every word you add becomes fuel for a fire that cannot warm you. You can sense that the goal isn't understanding anymore, but victory. They're not trying to hear you. They're trying to win against you. And what is the point of fighting a battle that only feeds someone's insecurity? If the truth can't get through their ego, your silence will. Because silence is the moment you stop negotiating with someone's wounds. Arguments driven by ego have no destination. They loop, twist, escalate, and collapse under their own weight. The more you try to explain, the more distorted your words become in the other person's mind. You cannot plant clarity in soil that refuses to receive it. The Stoics understood this perfectly. When someone is ruled by ego, logic cannot guide them. When someone is protecting pride, they are not seeking truth. And when someone is fighting to be right, they are too afraid to be wise. Silence is not retreat. It is refusing to engage in a war of illusions. Imagine stepping out of an argument not because you're defeated, but because you refuse to waste your strength on noise. There is a peace that comes with choosing not to respond, a dignity that settles into your chest like a steady heartbeat. Your silence becomes a boundary. I will not harm my peace just to satisfy your pride. There is also a quiet kind of sadness when you realize a conversation has left the realm of growth and entered the realm of ego. But even that sadness is clarity. The clarity that tells you when it's time to stop speaking and start observing. Observing the patterns, observing the resistance, observing the futility. Your silence is a reminder that your energy is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing, especially when the person in front of you is more committed to defending their identity than discovering the truth. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the emptiness of their argument back at them. And here is the paradox. The moment you stop trying to win is the moment you rise above the entire argument. Because silence isn't losing the battle, it's leaving the battlefield. And a Stoic knows the wisest victories are the ones you walk away from. 4. When someone is manipulating you with words, go silent when their words twist your reality. Your silence protects your truth. Manipulation thrives on your reaction. Starve it with stillness. Silence is how you step out of the story they're trying to trap you in. There is a very specific kind of discomfort that rises in your chest when someone starts twisting your words. You feel it. The tightening, the confusion, the sudden doubt about yourself. Manipulators are artists of distortion. They reshape your sentences, question your motives, and make you feel guilty for things you never did. Their goal is simple: undermine your clarity so they can control the narrative. Once you feel that fog entering your mind, that is your cue. Not to explain, not to defend, not to argue. Your cue is silence. Because your silence is the one thing they cannot spin into a weapon against you. The moment you stop responding, their entire strategy collapses. Your silence forces them to sit alone with the truth they were trying to hide behind you. Manipulation always depends on your emotional involvement. They need you confused. They need you defensive. They need you trying desperately to clarify something they've already decided to misunderstand. But when you become silent, the emotional battlefield disappears, and without it, they lose their advantage. The Stoics taught that words are only as powerful as the meaning we give them. A manipulator throws meaningless noise at you, hoping you will panic and respond. But a Stoic stands like a mountain, unmoved, unbothered, untouchable. Silence is not a retreat. It is a strategic withdrawal to protect your sanity. You don't win by arguing. You win by refusing to be pulled into their illusion. When someone gaslights you, silence becomes a shield. When someone guilt trips you, silence becomes a filter. When someone exaggerates, twists, or rewrites history, silence becomes the line you refuse to cross. Instead of trying to fix their story, you choose to stand firmly in your own. In manipulation, the loudest voice is not the strongest. The clearest mind is. And you keep that clarity by choosing silence over chaos. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to prove your innocence to someone who benefits from your confusion. Your silence says what your words never could. I see exactly what you're doing. And here is the truth that liberates you. Manipulators are not afraid of your anger. They know how to use it. They are not afraid of your explanations. They know how to twist them. What they fear is your silence. Because your silence cannot be controlled. In that stillness, you reclaim your narrative. You reclaim your mind. You reclaim yourself. And the more you practice this, the more you realize that silence isn't just protection, it's freedom. Silence is the moment you stop fighting their lies and start choosing your truth. And nothing disarms a manipulator faster than a calm, steady mind that refuses to play. 5. When the truth is still unclear, be silent. When the truth is blurred, silence protects you from your own assumptions. Most mistakes are born not from lies, but from reacting too soon. Silence is the wisdom to wait for clarity before you speak. Uncertainty has a way of unsettling the human mind. When something feels off, when someone's behavior shifts, when information is incomplete, the mind rushes to fill the silence with its own stories. Those stories rarely come from calmness. They come from fear, insecurity, and imagination. A mind without facts becomes a factory of assumptions. When you don't know the truth, everything becomes a mirror reflecting your doubts. You begin to interpret gestures, messages, pauses, and expressions through the lens of your own anxiety. But in this emotional fog, nothing you see is accurate, nothing you think is grounded, nothing you say will age well. The Stoics taught that wisdom begins with restraint. Restraint in judgment, restraint in fear, restraint in speech. A lake cannot reflect the sky until it becomes still. The same is true of your mind. When you stay silent, you allow the truth to unfold instead of forcing it. Silence is patience. Silence is maturity. Silence is choosing not to wound someone or yourself with premature assumptions. Many relationships, friendships, and opportunities have been lost because someone reacted before understanding. Silence keeps you from speaking words you can never take back. You don't need to confront someone when you aren't sure what is real. You don't need to accuse when you don't have facts. You don't need to spiral into emotional conclusions based on fragments. Silence holds you steady until your vision clears, and clarity always comes. Not when you demand it, but when you stop chasing it. When you listen. When you observe. When you let situations reveal themselves without interference. Silence is how you let the truth walk toward you instead of running toward shadows. With silence, you protect your peace from unnecessary storms. You protect your relationships from unfair assumptions. You protect yourself from the chaos of your own imagination. The calmer you become, the more reality distinguishes itself from your fears. Eventually, the truth arrives. It may surprise you, it may soften you, it may break you. But whatever it is, you will face it with clarity instead of confusion, and strength instead of panic. Silence is not what you do when you don't know the truth. Silence is what you do to make sure you finally see it. 6. When your words can't change the outcome. Stay silent. When the outcome is already set, your words lose their purpose. Silence is how you stop giving energy to battles that cannot be won. Not every story needs your explanation. Some only need your acceptance. There are times when you feel yourself talking and talking, yet nothing moves. The other person isn't meeting you halfway. Their mind is closed, their heart is distant, their decision already made long before you opened your mouth. And still, out of fear or hope, you keep explaining. You keep trying to fix something that is no longer yours to fix. But you cannot guide someone who has already turned away from the truth. The Stoics understood this well. Unnecessary words drain your strength. When an outcome is no longer within your control, speaking becomes a form of self-inflicted suffering. You argue with reality, hoping it shifts, but reality stays exactly where it is, unmoved, unbothered, unchanging. Silence is not defeat. It is alignment with truth. When you stop trying to persuade, something inside you begins to settle. You stop performing for someone who has already made up their mind. You stop begging for understanding from someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. And in that stillness, you reclaim your dignity. There is a quiet power in recognizing when a conversation has reached its final edge. You don't need to fight to be right. You don't need to force clarity. You don't need to repeat yourself to someone committed to their own narrative. Silence becomes the clean break that words could never offer. Some outcomes are not changed by speaking. They are changed by walking away. When you embrace silence, you release the emotional weight you've been carrying. You finally understand that closure isn't granted by others. It's created by you when you stop chasing explanations that were never meant to arrive. In that moment, strength replaces desperation, peace replaces tension, reality replaces illusion, and you realize that silence has given you something far more valuable than a perfect ending. It has given you yourself back. Speak when your voice can shape the future. Be silent when your voice can't change the past. That is Stoic clarity. 7. When someone doesn't respect you, stay silent. When someone dismisses your worth, silence becomes your boundary. Respect cannot be demanded with words. It must be mirrored through actions. Your silence teaches them what their behavior could not learn. There is a special kind of pain that comes from being treated as if your presence is optional, your voice is noise, or your feelings are an inconvenience. You feel it in your chest first, that small drop of heaviness. Then it spreads. Not because you are weak, but because your heart recognizes when it is not being honored. Most people respond by talking more, explaining more, justifying more, trying desperately to prove they deserve basic decency. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The more you speak to someone who doesn't respect you, the less your words matter. They aren't listening for understanding. They are listening for advantage. Silence is how you stop giving discounts on your dignity. The Stoics believe that dignity is not something others give you. It is something you refuse to surrender. When someone repeatedly interrupts you, mocks you, ignores your boundaries, or belittles your voice, your silence becomes a profound message. I will not participate in this version of myself you are trying to create. Respect begins where noise ends, because silence removes the oxygen from their disrespect. It forces them to confront themselves without a target. It reveals their pettiness, their impatience, their insecurity. All the things your words use to distract them from seeing. Silence is not withdrawal. It is elevation. When you become quiet, your absence speaks louder than your anger ever could. The person who once dismissed you begins to notice the empty space where your energy used to be. The attention they took for granted. The warmth they misused. The effort they didn't value. Humans often realize the worth of what they lost only when it no longer answers, no longer explains, no longer entertains disrespect. Your silence is not punishment. It is protection. It protects your peace from careless people. It protects your self-worth from being chipped away by small-minded behavior. It protects your future from being shaped by people who don't deserve a seat in it. Silence is the line drawn gently but unmistakably. And here is the shift. When you stop responding, you stop needing their validation. When you stop arguing, you stop accepting their version of your value. When you stop explaining, you start remembering who you are. In that stillness, respect returns. Not from them, but from yourself. And once you remember your worth, you never let someone treat you cheaply again. You don't raise your voice when you're disrespected. You raise your standards. And silence is how those standards are announced. 8. When action speaks louder than words, stay silent. When your truth no longer fits in words, let your actions carry it. Silence is the language of transformation. You owe no explanation for the life you choose to outgrow. There comes a moment when you realize talking has reached its limit. You've explained, clarified, justified, repeated, yet nothing shifts. The situation remains the same, the person remains unchanged, and the story stays stuck. That is the moment you stop pouring energy into words and start pouring it into action. Action has a purity that words can never match. Words are heard, but actions are felt. Words can be debated, but actions cannot be denied. Actions are the truths we live, even when our voice stays quiet. Silence is not avoidance. It's evolution. When you quietly begin changing your habits, people notice. When you distance yourself from the people who drain you, they feel it. When you walk away from what once harmed you, the world understands something shifted within you. There is a power in leaving without noise, choosing peace without announcements, healing without declarations. The Stoics believed that virtue should be shown, not spoken. A person's life should demonstrate their principles, not advertise them. Your silence becomes proof that you no longer negotiate with the old version of yourself. Some people don't deserve a warning. They deserve your absence. Some situations don't need a speech. They need your departure. Some patterns don't require analysis. They require ending. When you act instead of argue, you reclaim control. You redirect your energy inward, choosing growth over explanation. You stop convincing people to understand you and start building the life that reflects who you truly are. The most powerful changes happen quietly. The world sees them only when they're complete. Silence gives your evolution space to breathe. Silence removes the pressure to perform your healing for others. Silence protects your transformation from the opinions of those who never understood your journey. People may question your choices, but they cannot question your results. They may doubt your decisions, but they cannot deny your growth. They may misread your silence, but they will eventually respect your transformation. When your actions rise, your explanations become unnecessary. And when you choose silence, your life becomes the statement. In a world overflowing with noise, choosing silence is one of the rarest acts of strength. Because silence is not simply the absence of words, it is the presence of clarity, dignity, and self-control. Throughout this journey, you've witnessed 8 moments where silence becomes a shield, a mirror, a teacher, and sometimes a door that closes to protect you. Silence when emotions burn, silence when provoked, silence when ego takes over, silence when manipulation begins, silence when truth is unclear, silence when outcomes can't be changed, silence when respect is missing, silence when action speaks louder than speech. These are not passive moments, they are sacred decisions. Every time you choose silence, you choose not to betray your peace. You choose not to let the outside world shape your inner world. Today, choose one situation, just one, and practice the power of holding your tongue. You may be surprised at how much strength rises in the space you once filled with reaction. Thank you for spending your time here. May your silence become your wisdom, and your wisdom become your freedom. See you in the next video, Warrior of the Inner World.